Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, so when we originally started Cal Heal, the Genesis group, our Jesus journey, it's when you came to know Jesus. I couldn't ask any questions. And so I took a whole week trying to prepare 15 minutes of my Jesus journey. It was that important to me. And I was going back and forth with the Lord on what he wanted me to say. And if I'm to be honest with you about when I really came to know who God was, it was this is about my day of deliverance. And you'll understand that a little better. And I please pray for me because I am totally winging this. Um, I was going to time myself. Are you timing me, Clarissa? Okay. Um, so I was raised in a home that most people would call a Christian home, and I know that when you grow up in the 70s, 80s church, it's more about behavior than it is about a relationship with, like, truly. No, it is about a personal relationship with Jesus, but not really actually getting to know the person of Jesus or God the Father. And so I can't even tell you. I knew from when I was a little girl that there was a God. I just knew. I don't even. So our church actually asked if anybody wanted to be baptized, and I was about 12 years old, and my sister wanted to get baptized also. So that I was 12 when I got baptized. So somewhere between, probably a little later than birth and 12, I came to know Jesus, or I knew God. So I am actually a Canadian. I am from Peterborough, Ontario, and my husband is American. I came to the United States as a missionary at 19, and I came to the state of New Hampshire. I love the East Coast. But met my husband. They started a new ministry in Chicago, Illinois, and actually Palatine. And I met my husband. He is from California. So when my ministry commitment ended, I moved back to Ontario, and my husband and I got engaged. And he moved to Michigan because he knew somebody here, and that was the closest, like, commute until we got married. So we got married, and I gosh, we have three children, three adult children, four grandchildren now. We've been married 31 years. But probably about almost 10 years ago, my husband got involved in this men's group. And I had for years prayed for God to bring my husband godly men. And he did. And it didn't look anything like my prayer request was intended to mean. How many of you guys know that? Like, when you pray for something and you actually sit back and see God answering it, it doesn't look anything like you expected it to. But these men, they came alongside of my husband, and they challenged him, and they encouraged him in ways that he had never been before. And he was able to release some serious rage and anger that he had. And so there was a men's retreat that he went to, and when he got back, there was a women's retreat that he really wanted me to go to. And it was based off of the book Captivating. I don't know if any of you ladies know Stacey Eldridge, John Eldridge, Wild at Heart. But my husband really wanted me to go. And at that time, I was so full of pride. I literally said to one of my girlfriends that came up to me and said, "Are you going?" I was like, "Well, if my husband gets his way, I will." And I went in and I sat down at church, and the pastor, the speaker, said, if you are allowing pride to get between you and God, that's sin. And it took my breath away. I was like, oh, I'm going to this retreat. So I went to the retreat. My husband was so excited for me to go. And he was so like, ladies, when I tell you he was excited, he was so excited for me to go, and he was so excited to pick me up, and he couldn't wait to hear what God had done in my life. So I got dropped off, and my husband was there, and one of the things that they do at the retreat is they call it covenant time with God. I loved it. I love covenant time with God. And it is where you don't talk to anyone and they give you questions and you go away and you ask God, you listen to God and what he wants to speak into you. And he gave me a new name. So my husband was very, very excited about my new name. He wanted to know if God had given me a new name. Except there was something that I had to share with him. This is 10 years ago. There was something I had to share with him before I could tell him my new name. So we were driving in the truck and I'm like, stop, just stop. And he's like, what is going on? And I had to tell him that early on in our marriage, I had had an affair. I think part of the reason why it's so hard for me to say that is because I think it's become more frequent that women will speak out about having an affair. But 10 years ago, it was a lot of men. We put a lot of it on men. And we never really recognized that who they were having affairs with. But it was not a lot of women confessed to having affairs. So here I was in a circle with our community with like 5 men that had had affairs, and then there was me. So I told him, and he smashed, as we were driving, the front window of the car, a Tahoe. And he said, I knew. And I said to him, why didn't you pursue me? And he said, so this is all my fault. And I'm like, no. And that's when he smashed the window. He dropped me off and took off. That really put me in a place of no pride. Oh boy, was I emptied. I had nothing left. I can honestly say I had nothing left. I walked into the house and my kids were there, teenagers at the time. And they're like, Mom, are you okay? And it was like, no, but we'll be okay. It's okay. Just give us a minute. And so they ended up leaving and going to their friends. And I went upstairs and I put out my Bible and all my notes from the conference. And I actually texted some friends and my family. And I said, please pray for Scott and I. And I never did this. I never reached out for prayer, and I still struggle with this. But I said, especially to my family, please don't come, don't call, just pray. So just, Kathy, you talk about not saying anything. That's what I did. I just sat in it because I didn't know what to do other than trust God with it. I wanted my husband just to come back in the front door and go, we're going to be okay, and then leave again and be mad. He had every right to be mad. Even though it had happened years ago, it was still so fresh for him. It was fresh for him. So we had this 2 couples that we were in community with. And one of the couples texted me and said, hey, we're coming through town. Can we stop by? And I was like, if you want to. They had no idea what was going on. And so they stopped by and they sat with me for hours. And I just kept saying, God is so good. God is so good. And my girlfriend said, She goes, are you trying to convince yourself or do you believe that? And when I say that was my day of deliverance, that was the day that I realized whether my husband divorced me or he stayed with me, it was still good. It did not change who God was or is. And that was the day that I really knew. When you guys hear me on any prayer calls, I usually always say, thank you for being so good, God, because I believe it. No one will ever, ever, ever tell me anything different about the goodness of God. I know that in every cell of my body. And so they sat with me, and my husband ended up coming home about midnight, very angry, didn't want anything to do with me. My girlfriend and I left. Her husband stayed with my husband because I was really concerned about him. And the next day, the other two couples, the 24 hours, it was literally 24 hours. I had 3 songs that I played over and over and over again. I My Redeemer Lives by Nicole C. Mullen was one of them. My Healer. Um, I just sat, that was the river for me. That was the goodness of God flowing into me. So when I speak about music, music speaks literally to my soul. Um, so we met with the other two couples, and my husband and I were walking in together. And remember, we haven't seen each other for 24 hours. And he said, "Are you ready?" And he very angry still. And they were really hoping my husband would step up and tell me that he forgave me. But I'm going to tell you, I don't even know everything that happened in that room because it was a Holy Spirit moment for me in that room. And I knew in that moment who I was. I knew in that moment that I was freedom. I was who God told me that weekend who I was. I knew I was forgiven. I knew who God was, and he was good. That no matter what, God was everything to me. And there was a lot of weeping. My husband didn't forgive me in that moment. I knew. And we did hug, and he did leave the room once, and one of the guys went out and chased him and said, what if you do have something to do with this? So the people that I hung out with challenged us. They were exactly what Oshawa was talking about. You go to those people that will give you the truth. You don't want yes men. You want people that lay it out straight and flat for you, because that's what breathes life. And so the only thing that I asked my husband was not, because he knew who he was not to go with a gun to him. And I said, I don't want you in jail because we've worked too hard and too long to be where we're at right now. So we went home that night, and oh, I haven't shared this part. Can I turn off the recording? Clarissa, are you okay?